All of them, every man, woman and child. They must all be deported.
Immigration has once again taken centre stage in British politics after Rupert Lowe unveiled what he describes as the most comprehensive mass deportation plan ever proposed. Supporters call it a long overdue solution, while critics argue it raises major legal and practical questions. Let's take a closer look at what was actually proposed. Before we begin, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Britain Talks Daily. It's completely free. Now let's get into today's debate.
Thank you, Mr. Twigg. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Firstly, I want to thank 720,772 British men and women who signed our petition demanding the mass deportation of illegal migrants. A policy position that has moved from the so-called mad fringe to the acceptable mainstream in less than 2 years. But the question is no longer whether Britain has a problem. We know the problem. It's been well documented. Now we need solutions. Restore Britain is the first and only political party to publish a comprehensive plan, not just to stop future illegal immigration, but to remove those who have no legal right to remain in this country. All of them, every man, woman and child. They must all be deported, and a Restore Britain government will do exactly that. I'm not going to stand here and outline the problem. We all know what's wrong. I'm going to tell this Parliament exactly how we can remove millions of illegal migrants.
Rupert Lowe opens by thanking supporters of a petition calling for the deportation of people who are in the UK without legal permission to remain. He argues that public opinion has shifted significantly in recent years and claims the debate has moved into the political mainstream. Rather than focusing on the scale of illegal immigration, Lowe immediately turns his attention to what he describes as practical solutions, presenting Restore Britain's immigration plan as a detailed policy proposal rather than simply a political slogan.
As we have seen time and time again, deportation is routinely frustrated by a carefully designed maze of legislation, international treaties and legal challenges. A Restore Britain government will repeal or amend the domestic legislation that prevents swift deportation, repeal the Human Rights Act, withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights, and remove the Refugee Convention from domestic immigration law. It would also introduce what we call the Great Clarification Act, reaffirming that we in Parliament, in these buildings, have the final say over immigration policy, allowing Parliament to overturn court rulings that obstruct the democratic will on immigration. Not activist judges, but elected politicians, held to account by the British electorate. But legal reform is just the start. That simply sets the scene for the most ambitious set of deportations ever seen. The real question is this: how can we remove all of those with no legal right to be in Britain? The answer is by making illegal residence impossible to sustain, as we call it, the hostile environment. No legal employment, no legal tenancy, no access to public services, no banking facilities. That single reform becomes the backbone of our immigration enforcement. Make life so incredibly uncomfortable and unsustainable that many will simply deport themselves. Employers must face real-time right-to-work checks. The gig economy, construction, hospitality and other sectors with persistent illegal working would face regular audits. If Uber Eats, Deliveroo and the rest are found to be employing illegal migrants, they will be fined, prosecuted and even shut down. The farce of young Sudanese illegal migrant men delivering spring rolls and pepperoni pizzas on mopeds in every British suburb will end. Government itself must lead by example.
Lowe argues that the biggest obstacle to deportations is the current legal framework. He proposes major legislative changes, including repealing or amending domestic laws and changing the UK's relationship with international human rights obligations. He also outlines a much tougher enforcement strategy, suggesting that access to employment, housing, banking, and public services should depend on lawful immigration status. According to Lowe, these measures would encourage many people without legal status to leave voluntarily, while strengthening overall immigration enforcement.
Every company bidding for public contracts would have to demonstrate strict compliance with immigration law before receiving any taxpayers' money. ESG, but for mass deportations. Housing enforcement would change completely. Every landlord would be required to carry out right-to-rent checks at the beginning of every tenancy. Those who knowingly rent properties to illegal migrants would face severe financial penalties, and persistent offenders could face asset seizure and prosecution. HMO owners who impose gangs of feral illegal men on quiet British villages will be prosecuted. Public officials who knowingly place dangerous and unvetted migrants near schools and nurseries will be sent to prison. Homelessness legislation must also be amended so that illegal migrants are no longer recycled through local authority housing systems, but instead enter the immigration enforcement process. We will not house illegal migrant tramps, we will deport them. It's really that simple. Healthcare would no longer operate as a loophole. So-called safe surgeries must end. Proof of lawful status must become a requirement for routine NHS access. Illegal migrants in hospitals will, as they should now be, reported to immigration enforcement. We are not evil. Emergency care will be provided, but they will be then deported as soon as it's medically safe to do so. Across government departments, the departments will finally begin sharing data. The Home Office, HMRC, the NHS, local councils, the DWP, banks. Instead of operating in silos, government will work as one system to identify those with no legal right to remain. The full power of the British state will be directed to implement this one policy, mass deportation. Financial enforcement would become another powerful tool. Banks would verify immigration status before accounts are opened. Existing accounts without lawful status will be frozen or closed. The hostile environment measures will force out hundreds of thousands. A concurrent program of enforced deportations will be implemented alongside this to remove the rest.
The proposal then expands into housing, healthcare, financial services, and data sharing across government departments. Lowe argues that employers, landlords, banks, and public authorities should all play a greater role in enforcing immigration rules. He also proposes closer cooperation between agencies to identify individuals without legal status. Supporters may view these measures as strengthening immigration control, while critics are likely to question their impact on public services, individual rights, and administrative complexity.
Restore Britain proposes a major expansion of immigration enforcement, recruiting thousands of additional officers, drawing on former police officers, military veterans, and experienced investigators. A specified recruitment campaign for military veterans will be implemented, drawing former soldiers into field enforcement roles. Detention capacity would be expanded dramatically, including the use of purpose-built detention facilities capable of holding thousands awaiting removal. Commercial airlines will continue to be used where appropriate. Dedicated charter flights would become routine. Military transport aircraft would also be available where operationally necessary. Time will not be wasted. I will give way.
I'd just like to understand this point about detention centres and how many places would be required and over what period. And given the fact that the last government didn't manage to build except one new prison in 14 years, how the Honourable Gentleman thinks this is even feasible.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your intervention. I'm not going to go into detail. It's all in this document. I'll give you one to take away with you. Time will not be wasted. Specialist detention facilities will be constructed near airfields to hasten the process. Britain will negotiate far stronger bilateral return agreements while working with allies to create a deportation NATO, a coalition of like-minded countries applying coordinated diplomatic and economic pressure on governments that refuse to accept back their own citizens. Harmonised visa sanctions, coordinated suspension of visa issuance, foreign aid suspension, targeted trade measures and tariffs, remittance and dividend controls and taxation, rapid response returns task force. Pakistan would be the first country to feel the full force of these measures. Sanctions from a single country are easier to absorb, but a unified bloc of economies and travel markets creates systematic and severe pressure. Coordinated restrictions would also close loopholes, whereby nationals bypass one state's measures by moving to another jurisdiction, all delivered alongside the credible and proven threat of action. Do it once hard enough, and it wouldn't be required again. We must also revoke all asylum grants awarded following illegal entry and retrospectively revoke protection so that those individuals are also removed.
Lowe next focuses on how deportations would be carried out in practice. His proposals include recruiting thousands of additional enforcement officers, expanding detention facilities, increasing charter flights, and negotiating stronger return agreements with other countries. He also suggests creating closer international cooperation on deportations through coordinated diplomatic and economic measures. During the speech, another MP questions whether building the required detention infrastructure is realistic, highlighting concerns about the practicality of implementing such an ambitious program.
If you arrive in Britain illegally on a small boat, you will be deported, regardless of what your current status may claim. People ask whether this is achievable. Restore Britain says yes, but only if government finally demonstrates the robust political will required. What about cost? Britain is already paying billions every year on accommodation, billions on asylum, billions on public services for illegal migrants, billions supporting people who have no legal entitlement to remain here. In the short term, ending those long-term costs will offset the expenditure required to carry out removals, with estimated annual savings of more than £12 billion once the programme is complete. Put simply, mass deportation pays for itself. It's popular, it's cost-effective, and it's possible. I have just one question for my fellow MPs. What are we all waiting for? This is a costed, comprehensive, and legally sound plan that will, as those 720,772 British patriots demand, remove the illegal migrant population. We have outlined exactly what needs to happen in excruciating detail. It can be done, it must be done, it will be done. On your way out, please help yourselves to a mass deportation policy document. It makes glorious reading. Thank you.
In the final section, Lowe argues that his proposals are both financially sustainable and politically achievable. He claims that reducing spending on accommodation, asylum support, and related public services would eventually offset the costs of large-scale enforcement. He concludes by urging fellow MPs to support what he describes as a fully costed and legally workable immigration strategy. Whether those financial projections and legal assumptions would withstand detailed scrutiny remains a subject of political debate. Rupert Lowe's speech sets out one of the most far-reaching immigration proposals presented in Westminster in recent years. His plan combines legislative reform, stricter enforcement, expanded detention capacity, international cooperation, and significant changes to how public services interact with immigration enforcement. Supporters argue these measures would restore confidence in the UK's immigration system, strengthen border security, and ensure that immigration laws are enforced more consistently Critics, however, are likely to raise important questions about the legal, financial, and practical implications of such proposals. Many of the changes outlined would require substantial legislation, significant government resources, and could face legal challenges in both domestic and international courts. Others may question whether some of the proposed measures are compatible with the UK's existing legal obligations or whether they could have wider consequences for communities, employers, and public services. As with many major political proposals, the debate is likely to focus not only on whether the objectives are desirable, but also on whether the proposed methods are achievable and proportionate. Immigration remains one of the most discussed issues in British politics, and speeches like this are certain to generate strong opinions across the political spectrum. Ultimately, it will be Parliament, the courts where applicable, and the British public who decide which direction immigration policy should take in the years ahead. Understanding both the proposals and the arguments for and against them is essential for an informed discussion. What do you think about Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain immigration plan? Do you believe these proposals would strengthen the UK's immigration system, or do you think they raise too many legal and practical concerns? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this analysis, please leave a like and subscribe to Britain Talks Daily for more coverage of UK politics, Westminster debates, and parliamentary analysis. Turn on notifications so you never miss our latest videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next analysis.